I am absolutely delighted to, in a second, join me please in welcoming Nick Harrison, Director of Service Design and Assurance for GDS, to the stage. Nick Harrison joined the Civil Service in January 2014 as the Director for Enabling Digital Delivery at the Department for Work and Pensions. He's joined GDS in October 2016 and now holds the role of Director, Service Design and Assurance, reporting to the Director General, Kevin Cunnington. Nick joined the Civil Service following a 30-year career in the private sector, where he held numerous senior management and technical roles, primarily in the telecom sector. Nick, please do join the stage.
So, thank you. I am indeed Nick Harrison, that's true, and I am the Director for Service Design and Assurance at the Government Digital Service, which obviously, as you know, is part of the Cabinet Office. I haven't been a civil servant for very long, as you heard. I spent 30 years both developing software and running big software operations, so I'm more of a technical guy than a civil servant. But I'm certainly enjoying this new challenge. I want to start today by saying I know firsthand how difficult it is to establish a federated digital identity scheme. How do I know this? Because I took over Verify just over a year ago. Digital identity is often described as a means of reducing friction in digital transactions by providing a secure identity assurance mechanism that can then be used universally. However, establishing a common mechanism is far from a smooth process. In terms of comparative pain, all I can tell you is, some of you may know, this morning I was having root canal surgery. So that gives you an idea of how much work this really is. I think all of you know today that establishing a secure, scalable and renewable identity assurance scheme is a huge challenge for the digital world generally, not just ourselves in government. That's why I'm delighted to be here this afternoon with people all across the finance and private sector dealing with the same challenges in government. I'd like to start with a short introduction to Verify and the importance of getting digital identity right. I imagine most of you have already heard about Verify. In fact, some of you are our biggest champions. It is the government initiative to provide a single digital identity, initially for government services, but ultimately for the private sector as well. Digital identity is an essential part of the transformation of government because it will enable government to give people access to their data and services digitally, rather than to attend in person, make calls or send things through the post. Digital identity allows us to transform the way services are delivered rather than just putting forms online. And in all honesty, that's what a hell of a lot of government digital has been thus far, is just putting the paper form online with all the intendant processes behind that. And it's those intendant processes that are often expensive and difficult to operate. Digital identity will allow us to move away from that world. I will focus in this talk on the wider topic of digital identity, not simply the role of Verify, because it's the importance of getting digital identity right. But I will say we're working right across government at the moment to determine what Verify needs to look like and to be to meet the needs of the private sector as well as government. But first, let's talk about standards and collaboration. Standards are core to any digital identity scheme and how you deliver it. The government's primary role is to set and maintain those standards and enable interoperability between the UK standards and those in other countries. Collaboration between public and private sector is essential for progress. Indeed, our international research tells us successful schemes are almost always a public sector and private sector collaboration. Here in the UK, collaborative projects such as those conducted through the Open Identity Exchange have had an enormous influence on our current scheme and will undoubtedly determine its future success. So let's consider some of the key issues that are facing us. Firstly, and by far the most importantly, is data, how we think about it and how we use it. The importance of data to the information economy is likened to oil in the industrial sector. However, unlike oil, the volumes of data are growing year on year exponentially, and it creates a huge challenge for the businesses that have to process it. In particular, the proliferation of personal data throws up difficult questions for the organisations that have to hold it, process it and rely on it. How trustworthy is the identity and personal data that we're relying on, and how does an organisation maintain its accuracy and currency? Who owns the data? What rights does that person have over how that data is used? And lastly, how does an organisation make personal data available to individuals to use in third-party transactions, but at the same time give us confidence to the customer that their information and privacy are safeguarded? These are complex challenges and ones that the Government Digital Service has had to face in establishing Verify over the past 6 years. They're of fundamental importance as the world becomes ever more digital and the regulatory landscape shifts to empower individuals to use and control their data with the introduction of GDPR and open banking. As a country without a central citizen register or an ID card, we needed to adopt a suitably privacy and security-centric approach, but one that was at the same time usable by citizens and relying parties. And to be frank, we're still working on getting that right. As part of achieving this, we created a market of identity providers that meet the government standards. This meant the questions that have to be answered in the open, in the full glare of competing commercial organisations. The UK government has quite rightly subjected itself to a great deal of outside scrutiny in developing this approach, but it's not been without pain, as I know personally, and my colleagues even more so. From the outset, GDS has worked closely with a range of industries and a group of stakeholders who are concerned about privacy and consumer rights. We formalised these relationships in 2012 by joining the OIX and by setting up the Privacy and Consumer Advisory Group, at least one member of which I'm pleased to see here today. The Privacy and Consumer Advisory Group advises us on how to provide users with simple, trusted and secure means of accessing public services. These engagements with non-government stakeholders have been designed to help us get things right. We've embarked on a long-term strategic approach to the challenges of digital, and these challenges will not be addressed overnight. Identity schemes should not rely on single sources of identity evidence, even if they are government-issued documents. We must avoid creating single points of weakness. And we need to openly discuss identity standards, how we evolve them, and how we make sure that we're doing things in the right way. I'm pleased to say that the UK government continues to be at the heart of the work to map and align international standards so that digital identities can be trusted across borders, something I think we all agree will become more important regardless of the outcomes of Brexit. Governments have an important role to play in setting and enforcing standards that the market adopts. These standards must be developed and maintained in response to the rapidly changing technology and behavioural norms. Reference was made earlier today to the Connecting Europe Facility project that GDS, Barclays, HSBC, IDEMIA, Orange France and OIX are all collaborating on. This project is testing the interoperability of digital identities across national boundaries. Work such as this provides the practical insight into how standards are deployed in practice and what we might need to change to make them work better. We need ongoing collaboration between the public and private sectors. Technological disruption is happening at an accelerated pace. You can track it by the amount of chatter that conferences like this generate on Twitter and other social media. AI, the Internet of Things, blockchain, which is normally a conference in itself, biometrics and many other technologies are equal interest and concern to the public and private sector alike. Knowing how modern technologies can be deployed in a manner that addresses government policy requires collaboration on both sides. One such example of how seriously we're taking this in government was Wednesday's announcement by the Prime Minister and the Chancellor of a new GovTech fund of £20 million over 3 years. Emerging digital technologies offer numerous ways to improve public sector productivity. The GovTech Fund will support the uptake of digital technologies in the public sector. The GovTech Fund will also support the continued growth of UK's GovTech sector, helping the UK to take the lead in a potentially global market. I would also like to acknowledge the work of the Open Identity Exchange, which for 5 years has been facilitating collaboration between the public and private sector on a variety of public policy issues, such as the pensions dashboard, the work between ABI and the insurance companies, and the Blue Badge, which I know very well from my time at DWP, which is a collaboration with ForgeRock and Ping. And there are many other projects of this kind. Each of these projects has been successful in considering an aspect of government policy and identifying how the market can deliver a better open standards-based solution. As we look to make use of Verify in the private sector, we'll need more collaboration and more open dialogue to deliver the best solutions that meet regulations, standards and international operability while still putting the needs of users first. Verify has evolved over the past few years in tandem with the maturation of the international identity assurance landscape, and we're always looking how other people are solving the problems we have tried to solve. Like any tech product, Verify will naturally evolve, and we will take inspiration and share common solutions across the international identity landscape. But even as we identify opportunities in the private sector, I can assure you we're committed to Verify, as highlighted in its prominent place in the transformation strategy published this year. So, concluding, we have embarked on a long-term strategic approach to the challenges of digital. These will not be addressed overnight, but they are of great importance. User trust in digital will not be delivered through blind confidence in government, but through open dialogue. In 2017, it's become apparent that digital identity is of more importance than creating a simple way to open new accounts, reducing fraud, or preventing money laundering. Like many of the issues we are looking at with digital, the problem of identity is an evolving one. It's no longer a matter of accurate user numbers or customer data. It's increasingly being recognised as a moral and ethical imperative linked to citizens' rights. It's an issue that everyone in the digital space, whether it's government, banks, or e-commerce companies, have a part to play in. We must remember too, used properly, technology is still a powerful tool for good, to improve economic security, to fight extremism, to make citizens feel more connected to the government that serves them. We're committed to helping to establish better, safer online identity authentication so individuals can have trust in digital transactions, so fraud is reduced, so we can resolve questions of truth in data in an age of mass communication and news bots. This isn't a short-term mission. We'll need to remain vigilant and proactive in the long term. We understand that technology will continue to evolve, and we'll want to make sure we're one step ahead, or at least not too far behind. Keeping user data safe and secure, making sure identity cannot be used as a tool for subversion or manipulation. All the evidence suggests that this is best done when government works in collaboration with private sector industries. So please, let's continue the work we've started. No, indeed, let's accelerate that work and keep our collaboration open and productive. Thank you.